So at the time, you got to realize, tier one dudes or, any operator for that fact, wants to be where the best fighting's going on, right? We want to be where the baddest gunfights are going on at, right? So at that time, Rangers were flying in, landing on our compound to stage and popping out and smashing dudes down south. So the SEAL Team 6 dudes were like, hey, we want to go with those guys. So they started just tagging along and doing split missions with them because the CIA is not doing missions every single day. They're a little bit fewer and far between, whereas the Rangers were out there smacking stuff day in and day out, as were the other task forces. So that when they would go and do that, they would leave me in the rear so that I could take the other half of the team out with the CIA if the mission popped up. So at times it was like kind of sucky. The team leader would go out with a couple of the SEAL Team 6 guys, but then he would leave a few of them with me in case we needed to roll out with the agency. But that only happened a couple times, and then we started getting busy with the agency. But I did some stuff with the agency by myself at times, and then we did a lot of joint stuff. So we were working with the strike force of the Rangers, and we were also working with the agency hitting their targets as well. It just
So you
depended on what was big and what popped up, what was priority.
so you're talking about how you want to be where the baddest gunfights are, where the heaviest fighting is. I love that. I think that's badass as hell. What type of combat did you see as part of this Omega team?
It was a little different for me because typically, as Rangers were like kitted up, camouflage uniforms, clean shaven, with a military-ish type haircut, regular combat rifles, like the pictures you see all over the internet. That's the way we work. But on this program, there was a lot of reconnaissance that we did, right? I don't want to go too much into the weeds on this stuff, but a lot of reconnaissance that we did that required us to go out during the daytime low vis. So I was dressed up, had longer hair. Like I'd been growing my hair for like 6 or 8 months by the time I got overseas. That's the way they used to do it. They'd let us grow our hair and beard for like 6 months before we deployed. Um, so I kind of looked similar to an Afghan a little bit, and then we would dress up like Afghans and go out and do reconnaissance work, which required us going out low vis, which put us in some sketchy situations at times. We did that. I did that. We did that as military guys alone, but we also did it with the agency in support of their operations as well.
So let me ask something on that. When you're wearing Afghan clothes, how are you able? I'm assuming you're not able to just have an M4 slung across your chest, but you are armed. So what are you armed with, like pistols and
Yeah.
stuff?
Typically, we would have a pistol on us concealed, and then we'd have some sort of small, like submachine gun, like an MP7 or MP5K or something like that that we could stuff down in the seat and kind of hide pretty easily. It gives us a little bit more firepower and a bigger magazine. And then depending on the mission, some missions that may be all that we roll with, but there are some missions where we anticipate there's more of a risk. We would probably have like a backpack in the trunk of the car or somewhere stashed where it can't be seen easily with a collapsed down AR-15 with some grenades and mags and med pouches and things like that in there, and excess radios, GPSs, phones, whatever we needed. Basically, like a blowout bag. Like people talk about blowout bags. That's what those were, our blowout bags. If the crap hit the fan really bad and I needed serious firepower, I would bail out, ditch the car, snag my backpack, and roll.
And you just said you got into some sketchy situations as part of this program. Can you talk to us? Are there any you're able to talk about where things got real dicey?
Yeah, there was this one time where the ground branch guys were like, "Hey, we need some extra shooters to roll with us. We're gonna go out and get eyes on the target and figure out if the bad guy's there." Some reconnaissance stuff, basically, and they call it the AFO team. And I was like, "Shoot, yeah, I'll roll with you." I loved doing that stuff. It was my first time rolling around doing a lot of low vis stuff, so I thought it was super cool. It was just kind of different, I'm like used to kicking indoors all the time. This is different. So I enjoyed it, and I rolled out with these guys. And what they would do is they would roll out before our assault force would roll out, and we typically roll out together, and we'd find a spot to kind of hang out for a little bit, and then the recce element would go up, check the target, and then once they confirmed that bad guys were there, then they would call the strike force while they had eyes on still. Strike force would come hit the target, and the strike force would include the rest of the Rangers or SEAL Team 6 dudes, and then the ground branch guys with their endage. So I go up with these guys to recce this target. We were in a van, like a Haji van, looks like an Afghan van, with curtains and all this stuff. And we had two of our Afghan guys that were real trusted in the front seats. One was driving, one is in the passenger. Then we had a ground branch guy that was in the vehicle dealing with some equipment that they had in there. I don't want to get into the specifics on that, but he was doing his thing. And then I was an additional American shooter, the only other American besides him on that mission. So we roll out and then we get up to this target building. Mind you, it's at nighttime and we're driving around in a van, not in a tactical vehicle. So we roll up and these guys at the target building are wearing like Afghan National Army coats or Afghan National Police coats. I can't remember. The police and the Afghan National Army were always kind of suspect to us because we found them guarding Taliban a lot of times. So we rolled up to this house. These guys come up and they start questioning us as to what we're doing. And we tell them, a reason while we're there, not the reason, but a reason while we're there. And then trying to delay. Well, meanwhile, we called up to the strike force. We're like, hey guys, we're compromised out here. These dudes are coming up. They're on to us and they're not cool about it. So you guys need to head. So the strike force is 5 minutes down the road. They're already rolling, headed our way. So we're trying to talk to these guys and calm them down so that we can ease out of there on our own and not, kind of lose our cover for while we're there. But they're like, hey, we're calling the Taliban. They're going to come get you guys, and blah, 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 talking all this kind of crap. So I'm in the back of this van, actually facing to the rear of the van. The only thing I had at the time was an MP7, and then a pistol and extra mags. And the ground branch guy had a submachine gun of some sort, I think, and that's about all he had. So we're waiting there. These bad guys, we know our friends are on the way, thankfully. But then all of a sudden the Taliban guys were like, hey, our friends are coming to get you. And then we look and we can see down this alleyway about 200 or 300 meters. And I see dudes just pouring out from a building down there. And they're running our way. They got RPGs up like this. They got PKMs. They got AKs. I'm talking like 25 or 30 dudes running, but they're like several hundred meters away. They're running towards us. And so then I started coming up with a plan. And I thought I was going to be like the lone or not the lone survivor. I thought I was going to be a martyr for this one. I was like, hey, if these guys get here, like I have my hand on the back latch, mind you, 300 yards, some guys running, it doesn't take a lot of time for them to get there. So I was talking to the ground branch guy. I said, hey, if our guys don't get here quick enough, I'm going to hop out as these dudes get up in a close enough range. I'm going to get behind this wall and I'm going to start suppressing dudes. I'm like, you guys hit reverse on the van, slam it in reverse all the way back out to the highway, and then hit and go about 1,000 meters back into the south or whatever direction it was. And I said, I'll meet you guys there. So I was going to hop out and like just lay down suppressive fire on these guys until the van could get out of there. And the ground branch guy was like, all right, sounds good. It's a good plan. He's like, just hold for just a second. He's like, I think they're close. I'm like, all right. So I held for just a second more. And then around the corner comes the entire strike force. And I mean, you got 50 cals mounted on top, and these dudes scattered like cockroaches. But there were multiple incidences like that I dealt with over there.
Did you ever have to shoot anyone at close range doing low vis stuff in that program?
No, I beat it up on a guy one time with a laser. I just threw the overt laser like right on his face, and he saw it. He's like, whoa, and he backed down. But he didn't know who we were. We just pull up in a van, and he's like trying to mess with us, and I hopped out and put a laser on him, and he's just like, all right, backed away. Also had a time at a checkpoint where some dudes stopped us going across a bridge. I've talked about that on some of the other podcasts. I ended up having a pistol kind of like at a shawl kind of wrapped around me, kind of like my hair is right here, but had my pistol underneath this thing, literally pointing at a dude's head that was like this close to me for a period of time, but never had to shoot him, luckily.